He walked into the small family diner on a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the air smelled like fresh biscuits and the floors creaked more out of age than use. For a single dad like Ethan, this little place had become a pocket of peace. After juggling work, errands, and picking up his daughter from school, the diner was one of the few spots where he could breathe. Tonight, though, his daughter was spending the evening with her aunt, so for the first time in weeks he was eating alone. No crayons rolling off the table, no spilled juice, no tiny voice asking 1,000 questions. It felt strange, almost too quiet, but he welcomed it. He ordered his usual, grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and a warm roll. But as he waited, his eyes drifted around the room. That's when he noticed the woman. She was sitting at a booth near the entrance, her shoulders slightly hunched, as if she were trying to fold herself away from the world. Her clothes were worn, not dirty, just tired. And sitting beside her was a little girl, no older than 5, with big curious eyes and hair pulled into a ponytail that was coming loose. They weren't eating. They weren't even looking at the menu. The woman kept her gaze fixed on the table, while the little girl looked around as though she was searching for something familiar, something comforting, something filling. When the waitress approached them and softly asked if they were ready to order, the woman shook her head quickly. "No, thank you. We're just leaving," she whispered. But her voice didn't sound like someone who had finished a meal. It sounded like someone who couldn't afford to start one. Ethan didn't think much more about it until his food arrived. The plate hit the table with the warm smell of butter and seasoning rising in the air. And that's when it happened. A tiny pair of eyes landed on his plate, longing, hesitant, hungry. He followed that gaze and found the little girl staring at his food with a mix of fascination and quiet desperation. He wasn't sure if her mother noticed, but he saw everything. The way the girl bit her lip as if trying to stop herself from staring. The way she placed her hands in her lap as if she'd been taught not to touch anything unless told. And the way her mother gently tugged her arm, whispering, "Come on, sweetheart, let's go." The woman tried to rise quickly, hoping to slip out unnoticed, but as she stood, her daughter took one last glance at Ethan's plate. A glance so full of longing that it almost froze him in place. He didn't know them. He didn't know their story. But he knew that look. He had seen it years ago in the mirror. When he first became a single dad, money was tight and every dollar mattered. There were nights he'd pretend he wasn't hungry so his daughter could eat the last of the dinner they had. He knew what it felt like to want to give your child the world but not even be able to give them a warm meal. Before they reached the door, Ethan stood up. Something inside him moved, instinct, empathy, memory, maybe all three. "Excuse me," he said gently, not wanting to startle them. The woman froze. She didn't turn around immediately, as if bracing herself for judgment, assuming he was about to complain or point out they hadn't ordered anything. When she finally faced him, he saw the embarrassment in her eyes. She clutched her daughter's hand tightly, trying to shield her from the discomfort adults often failed to hide. I'm sorry," she said quickly. "We were just leaving." "You're not bothering anyone," he replied softly. "I just noticed your little girl might be hungry. Would you let me get you both something to eat?" The woman's face shifted through a storm of emotions, pride, fear, gratitude, uncertainty. "I appreciate it, really, but we can't accept that," she murmured, almost painfully. The little girl tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, I'm okay. I'm not hungry." But the way she said it, slow and unconvincing, made Ethan's heart sink. Kids shouldn't have to lie like that. Kids shouldn't have to carry adult struggles on shoulders so small. He knelt down so he could look the little girl in the eyes. "Hi," he said warmly. "I'm Ethan. What's your name?" She hesitated for a second and then replied in a shy voice, "Lily." "Well, Lily," he said with a smile, "I ordered way too much food. I could use some help finishing it. Do you think you could help me out?" The girl's eyes widened, and for a moment she looked at her mother for permission. The mother's breath trembled. Her eyes glistened. She looked at Ethan, searching his face for something, judgment, pity, motives, but found none of that. Only kindness. Real, quiet, steady kindness. Eventually, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Ethan motioned for them to join him at his booth. They sat down cautiously, as though afraid someone might tell them to leave. The waitress approached again, and Ethan didn't give the mother a chance to refuse. "Could we get a kid's meal, please? And maybe a warm soup for her mom?" he asked. The mom began shaking her head. I don't need anything. Just something small for her is fine. But her stomach answered for her. A soft, tired growl that she couldn't hide. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Ethan leaned forward. Please, let me do this. I know what it's like to struggle. Really, I do. This isn't charity. It's just dinner with new friends. The woman looked at him for a long moment, and then she finally exhaled. Thank you, she whispered, and it sounded like she had been holding that word inside for far too long. The food came quickly. The little girl dug into her plate with the kind of joy only children have, pure and honest. The mother ate slowly at first, as though she wasn't convinced this moment was real, but soon the warmth of the soup seemed to melt the tension out of her shoulders. As they ate, Ethan learned their story in pieces. Her name was Grace. She had recently left a difficult situation, one she didn't describe in detail, but the exhaustion in her voice said enough. She had no family nearby, no stable job yet, and she was doing everything she could to keep her daughter safe. Some nights they ate well. Some nights they didn't. Tonight was supposed to be one of the hard nights. Ethan listened without interrupting. He didn't offer advice or solutions. He simply listened, something Grace admitted no one had done for a long time. When the meal was over, Lily leaned back with a happy sigh and said, "Mommy, that was so yummy." Grace nodded, blinking back tears she didn't want her daughter to see. When they stood to leave, Grace turned to Ethan. "You don't know what this meant to us. I'm not sure how to repay you." "You don't need to," he replied. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself the way you take care of her." Grace nodded. "I will." As they stepped outside, Lily suddenly ran back and hugged Ethan around the waist. "Thank you," she said in a tiny voice muffled against his shirt. "You're really nice." Ethan's throat tightened. He bent down and hugged her back gently. "You're very welcome, kiddo." He watched as they walked away into the cool night air, hand in hand, disappearing down the quiet street. And as he returned to his table, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A quiet reminder that even in a world full of problems, a small act of kindness can still change the direction of someone's day. Maybe even their life. Sometimes the smallest gesture becomes the moment someone remembers forever. And sometimes helping a stranger reminds you that you're not as alone in the world as you thought. That night, Ethan didn't just finish his dinner. He carried with him the warmth of having made a difference. A reminder that kindness still mattered, still spread, still lived in ordinary people doing something extraordinary without even realizing it. And for the first time in a long time, he left the diner feeling full in a way food alone could never accomplish.